All right, so we're going to do 3 quick questions on independent and dependent variables and how to figure out which is which in a math problem. This one says the total cost T for frozen yogurt depends on the weight W in ounces. If Freddy's Frozen Yogurt Shop uses the equation T equals 0.34 W plus 2 to determine the cost of yogurt, which represents the dependent variable in the situation. So really all I care about is that last part. And we've talked about how the dependent variable is the one that doo-doos its pants, in its depends, and nobody wants to be around. We also know that we're looking for a variable. So it's not going to be 0.34 and it's not going to be 2. So if we look at what we've got left, T and W, which one is by itself because it doo-dooed its pants, and that's T. So that's the dependent variable. Next slide, we have 2 questions that are a little bit harder. It says determine the independent and dependent variable in each situation. Now this is where things get tricky. This is definitely a more advanced level question. The first one says Sarah has hired a contractor to replace the windows in her house. The more people that work, the less time it takes to install the windows. So in science, we say that the independent variable is the thing that I control. So in the math problems, you've just got to think which thing do you have more control over, and that's going to be the independent variable. So in this situation, Sarah has control over, or the people that are working have control over how many people are working. So that is the independent variable. So maybe Sarah can hire more people, or maybe the guy who's running the work site can hire more people, but that one is controlled directly by a person, and then the time that it takes changes as a result. It depends on how many people are working. So that's our dependent variable. In the next example, it says Michaela has a basket of yarn she uses to knit scarves. As she finishes knitting scarves, she has less yarn in her basket. So our 2 variables here are how many scarves does she have and how much yarn is in her basket. So Michaela has more direct control. The thing that if I'm Michaela, the thing that I can control is how many scarves I am knitting. And then the thing that depends on that, the thing that's going to change as a result is the yarn, and that's the dependent variable. You can also think about it as, in most of these problems anyways, which thing happened first. So in the first problem, the people that come to work, that happens before you fix the windows. In the second one, the number of scarves that she makes, that happens before the amount of yarn changes. So that's the thing that happens first that you have control over. I hope that makes a little bit of sense. Let's look at our last example. This one's multiple choice. It's still pretty difficult, but at least we have options now. So it says Suzanne is starting to babysit to earn extra money. She is charging $15 for each hour that she babysits. What represents the independent variable in this situation? So this is going to be the thing that Suzanne has control over, or that Suzanne is changing, or the event that directly causes something else. Okay, so let's read through our choices. Choice A says the total amount charged for babysitting. So Suzanne doesn't have necessarily direct control over that. That's kind of a product of what happens when she babysits. That's not so much the thing that she's changing. She's not saying, okay, well, today you're going to pay me $100, tomorrow you're going to pay me $150 for the same amount of work. So she's not changing the total. That changes as a result of something else. B says the rate she's paid per hour. And it would be great to say that she gets to set her own rate, but we've already been given that information. She is going to charge $15 no matter what. So she is not changing that. That is, in science, we would call that like a constant. It doesn't change. C says the number of hours she babysits. So this is interesting because this does change. Okay, the number of hours that she babysits is something that she can control. If somebody needs her to work for 7 hours, but she can only work for 4, then she has control over the number of hours. She's going to charge 15 no matter what, and the amount that she makes is going to vary, depend on the hours, but she can set the number of hours. So that sounds like it's probably going to be our independent variable. Let's check out D. B says the number of children she babysits. And again, she can't really control this. She could say no if somebody had like 17 kids because that's way too much work, but she doesn't get to decide how many kids each family has. So our independent variable is the number of hours that she babysits. She can change that. Maybe this week she only works 20, and maybe next week she's going to babysit 35 hours. Now, as a result, the thing that changes is the total amount that she's going to make. That is our dependent variable because that depends on how many hours she's going to babysit. So A was definitely there to be a distractor. Okay, I hope that helps some of you out. If you have any more questions, just ask us in class.